Good morning, and I understand you're the chairman of the Railton Owners Club.
That's correct, yes.
What a lovely day to be here.
Beautiful. We were here yesterday and today's even better, so
Oh, great.
Thanks for arranging the weather.
Well, it's a pleasure, sir. We did it for Railton because you've got a fantastic array of cars here today.
We got a lot of help from the events team as well to put this together. So,
good.
Mark Hastings and his guys did a really good job for us.
Wonderful, great. Would you be kind enough just to guide me along the road and talk about what we've got here?
Absolutely. Well, this car's mine. This is a 1946 Railton, which makes it a bit unusual because it's a 37 engine and chassis, but they're bodied up after the war. And it's one of only two that was bodied by Harold Bradford's, who nearly always only did it Rolls-Royce and Bentley. So it's quite a unique one. It has what they call a clamshell boot at the back, so the back of it opens up to form a picnic table. And so this is the clamshell feature. Top comes up, and this bottom bit will drop down as a table. So it's
really?
So it's quite unique, and it's also what they call a three-position drop head. So you can have this roof like this, obviously all the way closed, or you can pull it right the way down as well. So that's that would be one of the sort of last cars that was made, bodied up as a Railton. This is a Cobham Saloon. This was one of the more sort of regular vehicles that Railton put out in the 1930s. Most production stopped in 39 because of the war came around. Railtons went on to doing war work. But this was one of their sort of standard cars. Again, this is on the long chassis, and it has the normal Hudson 4.25 litre straight 8 engine in it. Nearly all the Railtons you'll see here today are that configuration. So very low revving engines, lots of torque, and incredibly quick in the day. So they were, a nice vehicle. Now this is one of the cars from our sister club, the Brough. Interesting story about the Broughs. George Brough decided he liked the Railton so much he wanted to make his own cars. So this is also on a Hudson engine and chassis, but with a body put on it by Brough. The story is that Railton's actually put him out of business making the 8-cylinder ones by cutting off his supply of American Hudson engines. And that was something that was concocted between Noel Macklin, who was involved with Railton's, and Reed Railton. And then George Brough had to go on to make his Super 6 cars because he couldn't get the 8-cylinder engines anymore. And just to complete the picture, here we've got a couple of Brough motorcycles. So that one has some links with Brooklands itself because it's one of the bikes that raced here back in the day. It's been recovered recently and it's going to undergo some restoration, but it's left in that condition simply because it's actually as authentic as you would get. This one's slightly different. This is an 860. This is a smaller engine than that one. That's the classic SS100, which is a 1000cc Jap engine. And to be honest, these bikes, when they're restored, could be worth as much as £250,000. Okay. Wow. This is another very interesting Railton. This is one of the two original lightweight sports tourers. Now you'll see several other examples along here of cars that are made to look the same, but this is one of only two of the actual production lightweight sport tourers. Now there's a famous picture of the second one, taken at Brooklands at the top of Test Hill. Okay. It was taken by Autocar in 1935, I think. And this was at the top of the hill, and what they do at Test Hill is, is get it into top gear and see how far it would go. The car that was like this is at the top of Test Hill with all four wheels off the ground. Wow. So it was still going, and they, really knew about it. Yeah. And this, of course, is your Terraplane from here. The Terraplanes it's sort of a bit of a bad engineering thing. When they first came over, it was the Hudson Terraplane. So your car is one of the very earliest ones that have come over. The first Railton was branded up in 1933, and it was the same, as I said, Hudson engine and chassis, but with different bodywork on it. So that's your vehicle that your guys know a lot about as well. I understand it's just undergone some fairly substantial repairs.
Yes.
So here's another Saloon, very similar to the Cobham that we saw back there. This has been quite heavily renovated recently in the last year or two, so it looks really, really smart now. And
it's beautiful, isn't
it? If you look at the cars, some are left sort of more original, some are really renovated.
Is this a shorter wheelbase?
It is. It's an earlier version, so it's on a slightly shorter chassis.
Yeah.
The biggest one was 122 inches, and I think these ones were about 117, something like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is a different one again. We embrace Essex as the brand. Essex is the precursor to Hudson. So Essex cars were made as sort of, again, a bit of a badge engineering thing in the United States. But this is a 6-cylinder Essex. There's another Brooklands related story about this car racing against a Bentley at Brooklands.
Okay.
And it's an apocryphal story. It was two gentlemen, one was Baron something or the other, and a bit of a bet on what would happen. Yeah. So this car took off, and apparently as it went round, they got to the start line. The Bentley broke down, but they allowed it to be fixed, and they raced round, and the Bentley just pipped it. Okay. And then our Hudson 8 came out with the 8-cylinder engine, not the 6-cylinder engine. And they said, "Oh, this is the car you were supposed to be racing."
Okay.
And you know what happened there?
Yeah, of course. Okay.
But,
how interesting.
So here we have another Brough. Lovely condition. So.
And what year are we looking at here?
Probably 35, something like that. Because what happened was, as I say, once the engine supply stopped, then he had to go to making the Super 6s, the supercharged 6-cylinder engine.
Right.
So. But this is another 8-cylinder, and we've got another one here. Just goes. Most of the Broughs, for one reason or another, are black. I don't know why. It's obviously a colour of choice. But this is another one that's done in this lovely blue colour, very, very distinctive. So that's a 35. These were all called dual purpose.
Okay.
Just for the reason that they were a convertible, and you could use them as sort of a luxury car, or you could use them as almost a race car, really.
And how many of these would be coach built?
They were all coach built.
In the sense of who would be the coach builder?
Well, in the case of Brough, they were all done by on George Brough's instructions. So you'll see there's a little more chrome and a little more detail on the radiators. If the Railton has a giveaway sort of feature, and you can see it probably even better on this car, it's the rivets along the bonnet.
Oh yes.
Okay, but that was considered by some people to be a bit sort of too sporty. It wasn't sort of elegant enough.
Okay.
And Brough certainly took the line that they wanted something that was that much more elegant. So you get slightly more chrome accents on the wings and that sort of thing. It was genuinely meant to be an upmarket version of the Railton, which is why the Railton company decided that they didn't really want to have that competition and decided to make it more difficult to do it.
So we're looking at a Terraplane.
This is another Terraplane, coupe again, which means it was a Hudson sold car in the UK. Even though these were American cars, you'll notice they're all in right-hand drive. And what used to happen was they would actually import the chassis completely knocked down from the United States. In fact, they came from Canada so that they didn't have to pay the empire tax on them.
Okay.
The Trump type tariff of the day, except we had it over here. So these would have come in as a kit, be put together down at Cobham. The Terraplanes were actually put together probably by Hudson's themselves rather than by the works down at Cobham, where in Fairmont, which is where all the Railtons were assembled. So they'd come in crates, put the chassis together, put the engine on it, and then send it to a coach builder. So most of these would either be the Railton ones would be Coachcraft, car bodies, any number of different makers that would put bodies in.
Well, the commonality is the chassis.
Chassis and the engine,
yeah. And engine, yeah.
So this one's got a little bit of history. You notice the bell on the front?
Yes.
Well, you see, the Metropolitan Police used to have 46 Railtons at one time.
Oh, gosh.
And they used them for the flying squad and for fast pursuit vehicles. And there is a story. This one was actually built for the flying squad, as it says here, okay? And the idea was what they used to do is they'd send 4 Met policemen down to Brooklands. One of these would be available. They'd drive it round and round and round for 500 miles. And if it was okay, they'd take delivery of it, take it straight up to Hendon, and then they'd cut the roof off, and the metal roof would be replaced with a wooden roof for better radio reception.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious me.
So that's the sort of range of different cars that you have. This one has only really just come back into a being, at least as far as the club's aware, in the last year or so. But it was originally built, one of the cars that was set aside and said, okay, it's for the police. And we think it was actually made especially for the commissioner
Really?
of the Metropolitan Police back in the day.
What a special vehicle. You have the most splendid selection of cars here.
Oh
today.
yeah, well there's a couple that are still missing. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. The one that's just pulling in over there behind the little Austin 7. That's a Spiking Special. That's a Hudson. That's got 2 superchargers on it.
Okay.
And he's been competing in the auto test
Yeah.
here this morning. That's one
Yeah.
of our members.
Yeah.
And then there's another one around somewhere, which is at the top of the hill there. That huge blue one. That's
Okay.
another one, which is a lightweight Schools Tour replica. So, like the one I talked about down here in the pale blue colour, that's one of our members who's come over from the Netherlands for this
Really?
event.
So you've got a weekend of it.
Yes, yeah. We've been working on this for quite some time, as I say, with your organisation.
Right.
And once we said, this is the reason we wanted to do it here. This is the 90th anniversary of the Napier Railton setting the lap record at Brooklands. So Railtons are associated with that. But it's also the 90th anniversary of Fernell setting the lap record on the Brough motorcycle.
Yeah.
So we thought Brough, Railton together, those two, celebrating those two 90-year events. We thought it was a great time to try and get down here and do something with Brooklands.
Well, it's worked.
Well, I'm not
selection.
sure we'll ever get this number of club cars together in one place again for some time.
Yeah.
Like all of our clubs, the problem is people getting older.
Yeah.
Membership tends to drop, and even people who want to come maybe physically are just not able. I mean, these cars have no power steering, no power brakes or anything. Driving it in modern conditions, you have to be on top of what you're doing. So it's good fun, but it's great to see this many cars.
And it's
here.
wonderful.
Great
And on a day like today,
and
and in front of the clubhouse as well.
absolutely, yeah.
Superb. Mick, thank you, sir.
It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you for talking to us, and thank you for coming to Brooklands.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.